Hello, this is Lady B, and this last couple weeks, as I've been resting and trying to recover from a really nasty case of bronchitis, I have been browsing the net as one does, and I came across a picture of some Shakshouka, which I've seen before, and I've always thought it looked really delicious, but for some reason, this time, it made me really hungry. And I talked to a friend of mine about it who's from Greece, and she got really excited and encouraged me to try making it and talked with me about the different variations, but the differences between the Middle Eastern version and the Greek version, and then her own personal version that she likes to make. And I got really excited about this, and so I guess it wore off. She got me excited, and I ran out to the store and bought all the ingredients, only to realize that I was not well enough to actually cook it. So here we are 5 days later, and I'm finally making it. Now, because she gave me this information about these variations, I decided to make 3 different kinds because I wanted to find out which one I liked best. So I have made Shakshouka. I have made the traditional Greek version only with the poached eggs rather than scrambled. And I have made my friend's version, which she uses a little non-traditional ingredient in it. And in that case, I scrambled it, which the Greek, according to my friend who's from Greece, you can either scramble it or poach it. It works either way. So while prepping it, the very first thing I did was I blanched my tomatoes. I decided I wanted to use fresh tomatoes, which meant I needed to peel them. I suppose I could have left the skins on, but I didn't want to. Now, peeling tomatoes is actually really, really, really easy. All you have to do is get a pot of boiling water and put your tomatoes in it for 30 to 40 seconds until the skin starts cracking and pulling away. And a little trick that my mother taught me is before you put them in the water, cut a little X in the bottom, and that just helps that split begin, because sometimes they don't want to split and it's really hard to tell if they're ready to come out, and it just gets tight, and then you actually start cooking the tomato. And you don't want that. You just want that skin to split. And once the skin splits, you take it out of the water and you put it immediately into a cold bath to stop the cooking. This also loosens up the skin. And as long as you get them cold right afterwards, the skin will just come right off. It's easy, just slips right off. You peel them off and then you just dice them like you would standard tomatoes. Now, you don't have to use fresh tomatoes. Like I said, I wanted to. I understand you can use canned tomatoes, the whole canned tomatoes for this, but I love that flavor of the fresh tomato. So that is what I did. The next thing I did was I prepped my onions and my peppers. 2 of my dishes, my versions, required onions, and 2 of them required peppers. And it's supposed to be a sweet pepper, a red pepper. Now you can either just use a bell pepper and use 1/3 of it per serving, which is 2 eggs, or you can do what I did, which is to buy this little teeny sweet salad peppers. And I used 3 of those each. And they're delicious, and I love them. Now, you want about 1/2 cup of diced onion per serving. And the Middle Eastern version called for yellow onion, and the Greek version called for sweet onion. Now, I suspect you can use whichever one you prefer, but I stuck with what the recipes I found said, so I used both kinds of onions and cut them up. You also need to pre-measure out your spices. What spices you use are going to depend on what kind of recipe you use, whether it's the Greek or the Middle Eastern or my friends. And either way, I just find it easier to pre-measure them out in a bowl that you can then dump into the pan when you're ready to do that. So prep all your ingredients. If you're doing the scrambled egg version, pre-beat it. That's actually the last thing I did before cooking. If you are going to use feta, make sure you measure out the amount you need, put it to the side, have it ready to be crumbled. It's a French technique called mise en place or something like that. I don't speak French, but the point is, have all your ingredients prepped before you ever start cooking. Makes your life so much easier. And it's not a hard prep. Then you need to take your skillet. Whatever size skillet you're going to use. If you're going to do 1 serving, you just need a small skillet. If you're going to do 2 servings, you need a medium-sized skillet. If you're going to do 3 servings, you need a 10-inch skillet. 6, 8, 10 inches. I don't really recommend trying to cook more than 3 servings in the same skillet. I think it would be really awkward, hard to get it out. Which is probably why all the recipes I found all were for 3 servings. Add a tablespoon or more as needed to the hot pan, and you put in your onion, your peppers, and your garlic, whichever ones you're using. And you're going to saute them for about 5 minutes until the onion starts getting a little translucent. You also throw in the spices with this. This gives you a chance to cook those spices and get all the flavor out of them. Salt and pepper, a little salt in there will help actually pull the moisture out of your onion and help them brown a little better. So don't forget to salt it. Once that's done, and it's been about 5 minutes, then it's time to add your diced tomatoes and your tomato sauce to the pan. Now, my friend's version that she did, instead of using tomato sauce, this was her unique take on it, she used coconut milk, and it's about 1/4 cup per serving, though it's actually a scant 1/4 cup. If you do 3 servings, a full 6 eggs, you really only want a 1/2 cup total with that. But if you do a little more with a smaller serving, you're fine. I would say a 1/4 cup for 1 serving, 1/3 cup for 2, and a 1/2 cup for 3 is how I would do it. But you add that into it, your ingredients, and you let it simmer covered for 15 minutes. Give it a stir it occasionally during that 15 minutes, but just let it simmer, let all those flavors mingle. It cooks and breaks down the tomato, makes it all so delicious. Then once that's done, you're going to uncover it and you're going to let it keep simmering until it gets to the thickness that you like. And it doesn't take that long. How long it takes is going to depend in part on how much you have put in of how much of the onions and the peppers and the garlic and all of that you've put in. I found that my one that had the lots of onion and pepper and the garlic all together was finished simmering down before the ones that had just 2 of those 3 ingredients. So it does make a difference. I just don't know if it's because they absorb some of the moisture or whatever it is, but the more of that you put in, the less time it will take to simmer down. Once you have it to that thickness you like, taste it. Taste it first, or even while you're simmering it down, taste it. And check and see if you need to add any more salt or pepper to your dish. Check that seasoning and make sure you have it right. I found, possibly because I was using fresh tomatoes, I had to add more salt to all 3 of my dishes. But once I added that salt, the flavors were bright and beautiful and delicious. Starting with the Middle Eastern version, I then made an indention in my sauce, and I broke 2 eggs into it, individual indentions, individual eggs. You don't want them to run together. you're wanting to actually poach them in this liquid. So you want them to be surrounded on all four sides with this beautiful liquid that you've made and this sauce you've made. You put the lid back on it, steam it just until the whites are solid, and then you take it off the burner. Now, in the case of the Greek version, with the feta, I actually crumbled most of the feta over the top of it and melted it, and then finished it after it was plated with the little bit of remaining feta. And it worked great. In the case of the one where you're using the scrambled eggs, it's very, very important you get that moisture content down to where it needs to be, where it's a lot more firm. It needs to be less saucy than the other two if you're going to use the scrambled egg method, where you have pre-beaten your egg. And this is probably why I noticed that some of the recipes for the Greek versions did not add as much liquid. They only added a couple tablespoons or none at all. I like the flavor from the liquid, so I would say just continue to boil it, simmer it down until it gets nice and thick. But then you add your eggs and you work it in, scramble it, cook it in the pan. When it's mostly done, you can crumble the feta in, scramble that in also, melt your cheese, melt your feta, sprinkle a little more on the top afterwards. So I made the 3 different kinds, and then I sat myself down at the table, and I would like to say I did not make a big pig out of myself. I only ate half of each dish, which is technically that's 1.5 servings, but I wasn't having any other dishes with it. You're actually supposed to eat it with a crusty bread or a pita bread, but I didn't bother with that. I just wanted the straight flavor. It was so good. Oh, I have to tell you, they were so delicious. The Middle Eastern one was beautiful and savory, and quite honestly, I could have used a little more heat in it. The Greek version, also beautifully savory, so delicious. But I have to say, my favorite version was the one from my friend. That version did not have any onion in it. It just had the red pepper and the garlic. And then again, it was scrambled, and it was so good. I am absolutely making this again with the coconut milk and the garlic and the savoriness. It was just so good. I might try it with onion next time, but the combination of the coconut milk and the tomato and the garlic and the oregano and that melted feta and all of that coming together with the scrambled eggs, it was so good. So this was my little experiment I did this week that I wanted to share with you. And if you have never had this, give it a try. It is so delicious. I highly recommend it. I'll put the recipes in the description. So if you want to, it's right there. Now, I love you all, whether new or old. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next week, where hopefully I'll be feeling a lot better. But until then, whatever it is you do this week, whether it's cooking traditional foods or anything else, just remember, don't be afraid to suit yourself and make whatever it is you do exclusively you.